They're like, oh yeah, guy with Pensy steam comes in every once in a while. They're not really much really test LED in the headlight, but we'll take this.
Known quite well by all. She's the regular combination. She's a Wabash cannonball.
Proceed to 15. Hello everybody, this is Pensy Joe back again for another in-depth review series. Today we finally made it to a Broadway Limited Imports number 1361 K4 Pennsylvania Railroad Pacific. Now this locomotive does not have a box that came with it, unfortunately, but I figured, you know what, might as well review one of these anyways. Now, if you've seen any of my previous in-depth review videos, especially locomotives that have Paragon 1, for example, my K4, not my K4s, I'm sorry, my EMD E7s by Broadway, they were made in Korea. This is also another locomotive made in Korea. This is a Platinum Line K4. So these are basically like DCC ready. There's no sound, no speaker in here as far as I understand. I haven't opened this in a while. It's been a while since I came to this locomotive. I plan on putting TCS WOW sometime after I make this video. I don't know when exactly. There's just so much stuff going on, so many exciting projects, and so many other things coming along as well. But don't worry, we'll get to this. But yeah, let's get into this locomotive. Already seeing on the outside for, Paragon 1, even though this is a DCC ready model, basically, this is not a Blue Line model. They didn't make K4s for Blue Line, as far as I understand. This is pretty nicely detailed. It has like this gold leaf lettering on it. Obviously, somebody weathered this. To me, it looks close to black, anyways, and to be honest, I'm fine with it. It is missing the front deck plate right here, but to be honest, I think it looks great without that front deck here. It has been broken off, unfortunately, by whoever used to own this originally. But I got a good deal for this. Less than $200, which is great. This is a great deal. There's no front coupler. I'll have to do some Katie fun magic if I want to put a coupler in front of here. Pilot wheels are painted. They were already painted, I believe, when these came out. Correct me if I'm wrong. This has obviously been weathered slightly with like a whitish color. I don't know. This does look like it could have been a winter time, but it's not light enough that it takes away from the DGLE. It's really pretty. I have to say, you almost couldn't tell that there was some weathering on this, unless you really, you can definitely notice it in person, but here it's not too prevalent. The whistle is broken off, unfortunately. Actually, no, it is there. It's just not painted brass. Well, it looks like there is brass, but they painted over it. That's strange. The bell does not swing, which is fine. Got a headlight in the front with the dynamo up front on the smoke box door cover. Or door plate. It's not on the door plate, but it's on the front fascia plate of the spoke box. And yeah, I'm not sure which version of the K, because there's so many variants of the K4 out there and so many different versions. Obviously, it has the different spoked wheel in the center compared to the other two on each end of the drivers, the forward driver and the rear driver. The middle driver has a different spoked driver wheel on both sides, so that's pretty cool. We got the reverse gear linkage. I haven't really tested this locomotive, by the way. I didn't put a decoder in here to test or anything, so it's it's something to be looked at once. So I do get a decoder, and I definitely need to get some testing decoders as well to just plug in and test and see how well it runs. But yeah, the detail, there's separately applied detail. Some of it's molded in. But a lot of this is separately applied detail, which is great. And the roof hatch opens, which is nice. And if we look under the locomotive, there's some speaker holes right here. And as you can see, there's no speaker inside of here, not on each side. So I'll have to add my own speakers, which is great. These wheels definitely need to be clean. It does show wear of usage, but doesn't look like it's been too much, which is good. That's a good sign. Do I plan to put firebox flicker in here? And unfortunately, I'll have to see, because you can probably only see the flicker right here, not really below here as much. It's more so covered compared to later K4 models. There is a hole right here, so I believe I can do firebox flicker. However, I'll have to make this semi-permanently connected and run some wires through this gap over here where this tether is. So it's basically like my K4 streamlined locomotive, where it has the cable, it has a tether that comes from the locomotive instead of from the tender to the locomotive. And I believe it's got double plug heads on this, so that will be interesting. I might paint the inside of this dish black since it can pop it out, just to, finish that up. Same with the truck wheels. I could probably pop these out if I wanted to at some point. Paint them black in the centers. You don't really have to, but I don't know. I'm kind of feel customizing my engines to do some paint work on them sometime in the future. Die-cast chassis for the tender and die-cast shell for the locomotive and tender. Right here we got some jeweled marker lights, which are really nice. They do not light up as far as I know, which is kind of a shame, but that's okay. I believe this rear tender light turns on. We'll have to check that out when we open this up. And yeah, there's not too much under here. Usually you got your run-of-the-mill, brake gear linkage right here. So pretty cool stuff. We'll turn it completely upside down so that we can open up the inside. And it's unfortunate that somebody scratched this, which is a shame. I can't tell where it was made in. It could be either or, made in China or made in Korea. These K4s are actually pretty good, especially this one. This is one of those like DCC Ready Virgin Platinum line models. So you would think, this would be all right. Now, I wouldn't really worry about gears, splitting axles or anything like that. You can get spare wheel sets. I'm not sure if the screw heads for the linkage that has for the center driver are the same as the later gear linkage axles. So that's something to take into consideration if you buy older K4s from Broadway. Make sure you can be able to get, parts, and if the parts fit. The gears are not really something you're going to be worried about. The gear sets or anything like that. That's not something you should worry about. It's really more so like if the linkage, can come off. But again, I don't think that's a real huge issue. I'm just having a little bit of a tough time. There we go. Just gotta basically crack that. It looks like it probably hasn't even been opened ever. Maybe, who knows. Okay, we're gonna take the screws out for the trailing truck and the pilot. And it looks like some paint somebody worked on came off, but that's okay. It looks like they were doing some paint work. Here's the truck. This is the correct way, and the truck's plastic. The truck is plastic itself, which is fine. I might have to screw a bit right here for the swivel guide. There we go. Now we can lift this off. There we go. We got a white gear in here. Now I believe this is not one of those gears that go they're not like the nylon gears that were early Broadway. However, you should always, keep that in the back of your head that if anything happens. However, tooling for Broadway rarely changes, guys. So you could probably get a spare wheel set and it will fit just right in here easily. Or if you know how to unquarter your locomotive, if you know how to take your wheel sets off and put a new gear in, you can do that as well. That's another way you can do this. However, I do not have the tool to take this off, so that's kind of a downside. Everything looks rather lubed and well greased in here, so I'm not really worried about having to do anything else for this locomotive. The grease in here does not look to be one of that old crappy gear grease they used to have. Now, as you can see, looks like the bearing got separated a bit. Sometimes the bearings can slide back and forth, which is something you got to be a little bit careful with. Try and get that back into place so that when I put the cover on, it's the gearbox cover, it should be fine. These are sprung, which is nice, except the middle drivers. These are not traction tires, guys. This is a no traction tire locomotive. So I don't think it really needs it since it's, all die cast, like the tender. Well, the tender's going to add some weight. But the locomotive's shell's die cast. What's great about this is that there's no, crappy... there's no crappy smoke unit. Now, I know some people, and the people who design this, I respect that, okay? I respect what they design and all that stuff. So, yeah, again, you got to make sure that there's these grooves right here, right there, for the middle gear axle that's supposed to hold these guys in place. So, just got to make sure, you line this right. Okay. And of course, these are sprung, so when you do the screws on these, you got to make sure they go back into the proper place. So, I'm going to screw these back into place, obviously. And we'll get to the next part where we'll open up the tender. Okay, everybody, all it took was 2 screws to get the tender off, and this is what we got inside. That's it. We got this, looks like this, like not like a jumper, but like a spacer, so that an 8-pin plug can fit on top of this. So, yeah, this is DCC ready, guys, straight up. I am very curious about this. Personally, I wouldn't really do much to this other than add speakers. So, if I were to hardwire this locomotive, for example, trying to get in a better position, I don't really have to hardwire it unless, the headlight's already in there. There's only 6 wires anyway, so it's only for the headlight. So all I can do is just put a TCS WOW decoder with a 8 to 9 pin adapter. Use the I can use one of those what's it called? I could put some speakers in here and then wire those, and all I have to do is just solder those together. I would have to look inside the locomotive, and we'll get to that in a bit. And we'll look inside there and see if we can fit firebox flicker LEDs inside here. I don't think you'll be able to see them, though. That would be the downside, but it's really about how much space we would have inside there so that you could see the firebox flicker from the side. You almost have to look down in there to see if it does flicker. And obviously there's going to be no cab light. I have no reason to, unless there is something inside there that would suggest that. However, this is basically what BLI should be making, in my opinion, and I would buy a whole bunch of these if they were basically like this, DCC ready. And obviously, they would use 21 pins if they decided to go with ESU, for example, in the future, or TCS. I would prefer TCS personally because I believe they have a better chuff library. And they have a good sound library anyways. And I believe Broadway Limited working with TCS will provide probably more accurate Pennsylvania Railroad sounds, and mainly the whistle. And the bell, you got a selection of bells that are really close to what they sound like in real life. So, yeah, I mean, there's only like an LED up back in there that lights up back of the locomotive. You already got some resistors in here, so you don't really need to do anything unless if you really want to add, a new resistor or hardwire this. You can hardwire this if you want to, but there really is no reason to. You just add an 8-pin decoder in here and just call it a day, and it can start putting them around, doing its thing. So this is probably going to be as easy as like doing a Bachmann DCC ready locomotive. And I really hope Broadway does consider doing DCC ready like this. Not like, Blue Line was great for what it was, but like this is even better. You don't have to worry about sound. You can add your own stuff. You can put your own speakers. You can work on this, and it's probably going to be at a cheaper price. So I really have to say, this is already great, the way it is. Now, given that it's DCC ready and there's no dummy plug I have for this, I can't run this on DC or DCC, so I can't really run it and complete the in-depth review, but I'm doing the in-depth review based on how it is. We're not going to have a section where it's about, the sounds and the electronics. Electronics basic like this, right? It would probably come originally with a 8-pin, dummy plug. I would say right away that this model is great the way it is electronically because you can just put whatever you want in here. Mechanically, I do not have an issue with this. If this locomotive is still running this strong and it hasn't had any issues or like gear cracking or anything like that, I would say it's a really fairly reliable model. Yes, it's not dark gray. It's not more modern plastics. Plastic's been around for a very long time, but they did different plastics throughout each generation of models sometimes. So I'm not really worried about this, to be honest. If you were to find a DCC ready, no sound locomotive, buy one, but get it for a realistic price. Some of these people on eBay are selling them for like a ridiculous amount of money. Some try to sell them for like $500, and I look at those people and I'm like, you guys are never going to sell that. And to this day, I haven't seen anybody sold it yet. Realistically, I got this for less than $200. I think that's a fair price. Although this has some missing parts, which is understandable. I have to get a new screw to go in here, and I could probably use any of my Broadway screws and see if they fit and just be like, oh, well, there you go. So, yeah, when it comes to like, getting one of these models, I highly recommend getting them for around $200 or less, because then you can add your own decoder in there, and I'll pretty much meet like a modern, Paragon 3, which is the last run you've seen these regular K4s. So right around $300, $350 at most with TCS WOW or ESU. You got a nice locomotive, and you could do your own upgrades for a couple bucks or more. So, and the lighting features and whatever. It's just there's a reason why companies still do DCC ready models, and Broadway needs to get with the times and in this case actually follow the trend of what other manufacturers are doing with their models, especially the higher ends. They make DC or basically DCC ready and DCC sound. You have to offer both. Yes, you're going to have to get rid of smoke unless you do ESU and you figure that stuff out and you have to install your own. Oh, hey, Broadway, you can make money by selling smoke units for people who want to turn their DCC ready versions of your product into DCC sound and smoke. They do that with European models already, so why not? You guys do the same thing too. So again, I don't see a reason why. It's a shame that they got rid of stuff like this, but yeah. I'll close up the tender and then we'll open up the locomotive and take a look inside and see what we got. Okay, so we got the shell off. And again, this is die cast. I know he's got weight in there. Holy cow. And there's the contact parts for the headlight stuff. So this is already pretty much set up. Here's a gearbox tower right here, and then we got our flywheel and 5-pole motor. This is that iridescent motor that I love seeing. These motors are pretty good. In fact, I would argue that they're really good. These are, you would find these in Paragon 1 and Blue Line. I'm not sure about Paragon 2. I haven't looked at the Paragon 2 model. Well, if I can remember. Anyways, this is a pretty good motor. I haven't had any Paragon 1 issue or QSI issues, the QSI era locomotive issues. So let's see. I can probably feel. Yeah, this feels like a 5-pole. Yeah, this is a 5-pole. Sweet. So, yeah, I mean, this is really nice. I mean, yeah, this weight looks kind of crude, but I mean, if you wanted, you could take this off and then fit whatever you want in here. However, there's no way you can get into the cab to do a cab light, which is a shame. You don't want to drill anything unless you're really good at this stuff. I try to look over here. And yes, I can fit lights in here, but the problem is, well, you can't see fireflux flicker through there, unfortunately. And I would have to put LEDs right in here, but I don't even think you would be able to see it anyways through this grate right here. So I would have to take the grate off from the bottom. I would have to take the grate off from the bottom in order to fit LEDs in there. And even then, I got to see if they can go through here. So it would be a project. That's all I got to say. It would be a project. And this locomotive would pretty much be permanently connected at that point if I wanted to do firebox flicker. I can give it a shot. I mean, I have LEDs. I got still got enough heat shrinking tubes for the correct size. So hey, why not? Maybe I can do that for this model. I'm not sure how well it would look, but I can always give it a shot. I'm not afraid to take this thing apart. It was cheap, and it's a great value. I really think less than 200 or around $200 for any Broadway engine without DCC and sound is perfect enough for me. And you can do whatever you want with it. As long as the drivetrain's good, I don't care. Speaking of the drivetrain, let's take a look inside the gearbox tower. Now, the screws were actually easy to take off for this model because I have a hunch that somebody actually got to open this model before. Now that I'm looking at this, it looks like they're. I don't think this is interesting. It looks like that the worm gear is just right there. That's it. It's right there, right in front of you. So that's interesting. The grease is still pretty good. This looks like the modern grease, not some of the old crap cheapo grease. So it looks like it's already well greased, so that's great. This model is ready to go. If only I had a decoder. But yeah, I have to say this is solid. There doesn't seem to be a need for, if I open this again, it's actually really easy. Yeah, there's no guide thing to keep this from moving back and forth because it can't move back and forward. So there's no need for a thrush washer right here actually. So hey, that's great. Although it would be nice to have thrush washers anyways, but there's no need to. So yeah, it's simple, but it works and it does its job. I have to say that this model will be a very solid runner for many decades to come still. Of course, I would have to find... I mean, Broadway's never going to stop making K4s, and I'm pretty sure that the tooling will never change. So, unless, they got to add, lights for the marker lights and for the cab light. I don't know if they can have the cab light, but besides the point, this is a fairly solid model in here mechanically. And yeah, that pretty much reaches the end of this video, guys. I'll show you the other side of the boiler in case you didn't see the details on this side. And it has a drop plate that flips up and down. You got crew figures in here. Details on this side are really nice. I mean, it's just I mean, if you look under here, you got some more piping, separate ply details as well. Again, it's just, I know you didn't look at the other side, but overall, this is a really solid model that you can get, you know, used. And don't overpay for these. Seriously, don't overpay. The most they're worth, in my opinion, is $200, and that's the most. Okay, this has been, you know, weathered, obviously. And, you know, it's 1361. Usually 1361 sells, but lately I've not seen anybody want to buy Bachmann 1361. So, yeah, this is a keeper, guys. This is my new 1361. The old Bachmann 1361 will be a fun little project for me to do customization, to make a custom K4. I'd like to do a K4 with the deck plate over here, but I want an air tank below it because it has space on the Bachmann ones to put an air tank right around here. It's kind of like the M1, so I'll have to figure out if I can find a spare part or M1 like air tank kit for the front and see if I can put it on my K4, paint it black, and be like, yo, man, that looks pretty cool. But they actually did exist. K4s did actually have an air tank. Some K4s actually had an air tank put under the deck plate on the front of the smoke box. So that's actually pretty cool. Anywho, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this in-depth review for this Platinum Line Paragon K4s by Broadway Limited. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Until next time, bye now.
Hear the lonesome hobo squall, riding through the jungle on the Wabash Cannonball. Well, the eastern states are dandies, so the western people say. St. Louis to Chicago, Rock Island by the way. From the hills of Minnesota, where the rippling waters fall, no chances can be taken on the Wabash Cannonball. Oh, listen to the jingle, the rumble and the roar, as she glides along the woodland to the hill and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear the lonesome hobo squall, riding through the jungle on the Wabash Cannonball. Now here's to Daddy Claxton, may his name forever stand, and may he be remembered in the courts throughout the land. When his earthly race is over, let the curtains round him fall. We'll carry him home to victory on the Wabash Cannonball. Oh, listen to the jingle, the rumble and the roar, as she glides along the woodland through the